It was one of those nights when everything felt off. I had been working on my project for hours. The screen in front of me glowing as the clock ticked past midnight. I had no idea what I was doing. The ideas just weren't coming together, and the pressure was building. I mean, we've all been there, right? You know, when you're just sitting there, staring at a blank page, hoping anything would make sense. That was me struggling to keep it together as I faced the looming deadline. I'd had a long day, a stressful week, and honestly, I was about to call it quits. But then something unexpected happened. I was sitting there completely stuck when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my best friend, Emma. Now, Emma and I had been close for years, and we talked about everything. She knew how crazy things were for me with my project and how stressed I had been. But this message wasn't about that. It was a simple "Hey, how's everything going?" I replied, telling her I was struggling, and that's when she suggested something that caught me off guard. "Why don't you ask my brother for help? He's pretty good with stuff like this." Now, I'd met her brother, Jake, a few times before. He was a bit older than us, and honestly, I had never thought of asking him for help. I mean, he was busy with his own thing, right? But I was desperate. I needed some kind of guidance. I didn't expect him to respond right away, but to my surprise, within minutes, Jake sent a message saying he'd be over in about 20 minutes. At first, I wasn't sure what to think. It was late. People don't just drop everything to help others, especially not at this hour. But I appreciated that he was willing to give up his time when he showed up. He looked pretty relaxed, almost like he had just come from a workout or something. He walked into the room, and I remember thinking, okay, this is a bit strange. I wasn't sure how to start, and honestly, I felt a little awkward. Here I was, asking my best friend's brother for help with something that seemed so simple, but, for me, it felt overwhelming. Jake didn't seem to mind though. He immediately got to work sitting down next to me and asking about the project. I could tell he was genuinely interested in helping me out, which made me feel a bit more comfortable. He asked me to explain where I was stuck, and I started to talk him through the issues I was facing. It was amazing how quickly he understood what I was trying to do. Without missing a beat, he pointed out a few things I had completely overlooked. He didn't make me feel dumb for not knowing, and he didn't judge me for getting stuck. Instead, he broke things down for me step by step, explaining in simple terms how I could fix the issues I was facing. What surprised me the most was how patient he was. I mean, we're talking about someone who could have easily been doing something else. He didn't have to help me, but he chose to. It made me realize how rare it is to find someone willing to give their time like that, especially when they don't have to. As we worked through the problems, the more I started to understand the project. He gave me suggestions, but also let me come to my own conclusions. It was like he was guiding me without just handing me the answers. By the time we were done, I felt like I could actually finish the project on my own. The best part, I no longer felt overwhelmed. But here's the thing that truly surprised me. After we finished, Jake didn't leave right away. He stayed for a little bit longer, chatting with me about all sorts of things. We talked about our goals, future plans, and even shared a few laughs about random stuff. It was one of those conversations that felt so natural, like we were friends, not just someone's brother helping out. It made me realize that sometimes, the help we need doesn't always come from the people we expect. I never would have thought to ask Jake for help in the first place. He wasn't just my best friend's brother, he was a kind person who cared enough to offer his time and knowledge. That night was a turning point for me. Not only did I finish my project, but I also gained a new perspective on what it means to be supported. It's not just about getting help when you're struggling, but about someone showing up and being there for you without any expectations. That's something that sticks with you the next day. I finished the project with a renewed sense of confidence. And guess what? It turned out to be one of the best projects I've ever worked on. All because of a late-night help from my best friend's brother, who took the time to teach me and support me when I needed it most. Now, when I think back to that night, I don't just remember the project or the stress of the deadline. What I remember most is the kindness and generosity of someone who didn't have to help, but chose to anyway. And it's a reminder that we should always be willing to offer a hand when someone else is struggling, because you never know how much your support can mean to them. So, the next time you find yourself in need of help, don't be afraid to ask someone, even if it's someone you wouldn't normally think of. You might be surprised by the outcome. And to Jake, if you're watching this, thank you for being there for me when I needed it the most. You truly made a difference in my life. As I sat back, reflecting on everything that had happened, I couldn't help but think about how often we take the simple acts of kindness for granted. Jake didn't just help me with my project. He reminded me of the importance of community, of having people around who truly have your back. And in that moment, I realized how crucial those connections are in our lives. It's funny, isn't it? We go through our daily routines, often rushing from one thing to the next. Focusing on our goals, our work, our personal achievements, we become so engrossed in our own world that sometimes, we forget that the best support system we can have is the one that's already around us, our friends, our family, those who are quietly rooting for us. It's easy to forget that it's not always about accomplishing things on your own, but about how we lift each other up along the way in the days that followed. I couldn't stop thinking about that night. I felt more connected to Jake than I ever had before. It wasn't just about the project anymore, it was about something deeper. I realized that we don't always have to be in the same social circles or have similar interests to connect with someone. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of vulnerability, a willingness to show up for one another, and that's where real bonds are formed. I remember sharing what had happened with Emma the next day. She was, of course, glad that I had gotten the help I needed. But there was something in the way she said it that made me realize she already knew exactly what her brother was like. She said, "Jake's always like that. He might not always show it, but he's the type of person who will help without hesitation when someone needs him." It struck me how important it is to have those quiet, consistent people in our lives, those who don't seek recognition, who just want to help when they can. They don't wait for a thank you, and they don't expect anything in return. They just do it because it's who they are. That thought lingered in my mind for days. I realized that there are so many small, unnoticed acts of kindness happening around us all the time. Sometimes, we get so caught up in our lives that we miss them. But those little things, the ones that may seem insignificant to the person doing them, actually leave the biggest impact on others. It's those moments that remind us that we're not alone, that we don't have to carry the weight of the world by ourselves. I also realized that being there for others doesn't always have to be a grand gesture. You don't need to have the perfect answer, the perfect solution, or the perfect timing. Sometimes, just being present and offering a helping hand, even when it's late at night or inconvenient, is what truly matters. The next time I found myself in a tough spot, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had learned to not hesitate to ask for help when I needed it. I had learned that there's no shame in reaching out, and most importantly, I had learned to be more mindful of the people around me, of their quiet acts of kindness, and how I could do the same for others when they needed it most. As for Jake, we became closer after that night, not because he had helped me with my project, but because he had helped me see something that I hadn't truly appreciated before: the power of being there for someone. No matter the time, no matter the circumstances. That night, I learned that it's not the big moments that define us, but the small, selfless acts that we do for others, the quiet support we offer when someone least expects it. That's the kind of thing that makes a real difference in people's lives. And I knew that I would carry that lesson with me, not just for the rest of that project, but for the rest of my life. So, here's to the unsung heroes in our lives, those who step in, without asking for anything in return, and help us when we need it most. They may never get the credit they deserve, but their impact is immeasurable. And they remind us all that we are never alone in our struggles, as long as we're willing to show up for each other. As I finished my project and sent it off, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude, not just for Jake's help, but for the realization that there's always someone out there who's willing to help, and that's a beautiful thing. So, I leave you with this: if you're ever stuck, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, don't hesitate to reach out. You might be surprised by who's willing to help, and you might find yourself building connections that go deeper than you ever expected. And remember, the people who show up for us in our darkest times are the ones who will stay in our hearts forever. And in this busy world, it's those quiet moments of support that make all the difference. As the days passed, I began to notice something within myself, something subtle, but powerful. The experience with Jake had shifted my perspective, not just about asking for help, but also about how I engage with the world around me. It made me realize how often we forget to acknowledge the people who make a difference in our lives, the quiet heroes who don't seek recognition. I started to pay more attention to the small things, to the little gestures of kindness that I had previously overlooked. Whether it was a colleague offering a helping hand, a friend reaching out just to check in, or even a stranger holding the door open for someone, these moments, though seemingly insignificant, had a huge impact on me. I started thinking about how much we take for granted, assuming that the world will always be there to support us, when, in reality, it's the people around us who are our true support system. In the following weeks, I found myself reaching out more to others. I realized that asking for help wasn't just a one-way street. I had the opportunity to offer support, to others as well. It didn't always require big actions. Sometimes, it was as simple as being a listening ear, offering encouragement, or just showing up when someone needed you. I also made a conscious effort to express my gratitude more often. It was easy to take people for granted, but I had learned that a simple thank you could go a long way. Whether it was for someone holding the door, offering a piece of advice, or just being there when things were tough, expressing gratitude became something that felt natural to me the more I did it. The more I realized how much it impacted not just the people around me, but also my self-gratitude, it seemed, was contagious. The more I expressed it, the more others did too. It was like a ripple effect, spreading kindness and positivity wherever it went. One day, I reached out to Jake again, just to check in and see how he was doing. I thanked him again, not just for the project, but for the lesson he had taught me. And, to my surprise, he wasn't just appreciative of the thank you, he was touched. He admitted that not many people took the time to acknowledge his efforts. It made me realize that sometimes, the people who give the most are the ones who go unnoticed, and how important it is to make sure they know they are appreciated. It wasn't just Jake, either. I started thinking about all the people who had helped me throughout my life, family members, friends, mentors, even colleagues. They had all played a role in shaping who I was, and I hadn't always recognized their contributions. Now, I was more aware of the impact they had, and I made it a point to thank them, to let them know that their support mattered. And it wasn't just about the big moments of help. Either it was about the small, everyday things, the ones that we often overlook, the times someone listened when we needed to vent, or the moments when someone shared a laugh during a stressful time. These were the moments that often made the difference, even if they didn't seem significant at the time. I also started reflecting on how much I had grown through this experience. I wasn't just thankful for Jake's help, but for the person it had helped me become. Was more patient, more open to receiving help, and more willing to offer support to others. I realized that true strength wasn't about handling everything on your own. It was about knowing when to ask for help, and being open to the support that others offer. I think the most important lesson I took away from that night wasn't just about getting help with a project. It was about how to build stronger, more meaningful connections with the people around me. It was about understanding that we all have a role to play in each other's lives, and that by showing up for one another, we can create a web of support that extends beyond any single moment of need. As I look back on that night, I now see it as more than just a time when Jake helped me finish a project. It was the night I learned the power of vulnerability, the importance of support, and the incredible impact of showing up for others. It was a reminder that we don't have to do everything alone, and maybe that's the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that we are surrounded by people who care, who are ready and willing to help us when we need it most, and that, in turn, is something we can pass on to others. We can be that source of support for someone else, just like Jake was for me. And in doing so, we can create a cycle of kindness and generosity that continues to grow, making the world a little brighter and a little more connected. So if you take anything away from this story, let it be this: you are never alone. There will always be someone there for you, ready to help when you need it. And when you have the chance, don't hesitate to be there for someone else. You never know just how much of an impact your presence, your help, or even your kind words might have. And remember, it's the quiet acts of kindness, the ones that go unnoticed, that often make the most profound difference in the world. They are the moments that create lasting bonds, that build trust and understanding, and that remind us all that we are connected in ways that we sometimes fail to see. In the end, it's not the grand gestures or the big moments that define us. It's the small, everyday acts of kindness and support that shape our lives and the lives of those around us. So, keep showing up for the people who matter to you, and never forget that the simplest acts of kindness can change someone's life.